Welcome, Kevin. Happy to have you here at the relaunch of Tourism X. And let's kick off with a question as to what is it that you would like to share with us in terms of giving us more details about this year's SASIA event, Safety Summit, and more in particular, what delegates can expect from the program and discussions. Morning, Kevin.
Gerrit, good morning to you. I see we have the same hairstylist that's been working on our programs. Yeah, we've got our Event Safety Summit taking place at Gallagher Convention Centre, 27th and 28th of July. Looks like it's going to be a great event. We've got some marvellous speakers. And the idea is that what we'll do is we'll bring together a broad spectrum of stakeholders in the events industry, event organisers, event safety officers, EMS officials, particularly targeting SAPs and people working in local government who are responsible for enforcing safety protocols, for a series of discussions about the standards, the legislation and the practices that exist in the events industry, with a particular focus on event safety. Just for any viewers, I see you still calling me SAICA. SAICA is the Institute of Chartered Accountants. We're SACIA.
I'll duly repair that. So when you type these things, your mind is well ahead of yourself. So let me just repair that first slide there. I see Tess has also joined us there, but we'll add her to the stage later on. Okay, and so thanks for that introduction. And then how important is it for the event industry, both South Africa, and worldwide for that matter, to embed a stronger safety-first culture and approach as events continue to grow in scale and complexity? I remember the late Jan Brewer always said to me, Gerrit, events organizers forget there's two types of public liability insurance. There's the one for the venue, and then there's one for the organizer. And when you share that with event organizers, they get quite a bit of a shock. So what are the kind of culture that we need to embed when it comes to organizing large-scale events? Kevin?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's about embedding a philosophy within the industry that puts safety at the heart of everything that we do. We have standards, we have legislation, we have bylaws, but if people don't embrace that commitment to the philosophy of event safety, then those bylaws and the legislation and the standards that are applied simply become irrelevant. People will get hurt, and I think we've seen many instances, particularly with political rallies that have taken place where people have been injured. And actually, we often used to say, well, do we have to wait until somebody gets hurt before we embed this commitment to safety? Well, people have been hurt, and yet in many instances when people organize events, things are happening at the last minute. You've got tight deadlines, you've got a lot of pressure, you've got a lot of people moving through a dedicated space. And actually safety is the last thing on somebody's mind. In fact, I think one of the challenges that we have is to say that safety is often not just an afterthought. Safety is a no thought at all. And so in essence, what we need to do is to make sure people understand that there are standards, that there is legislation, and that there are consequences for people that don't abide in a commitment to those standards and those principles. We had a situation just before Christmas where there was an event taking place at I think this was in Switzerland, where there was a fire that was started by people that were using indoor fireworks. I think 20, 30 odd people died. And we've had similar situations in South Africa as well, not so much where people have died as a result of fire, but we've had tents collapse, we've had stages collapse, we've had marquees blow away in the wind. We just can't allow that kind of thing to continue happening.
Yeah. So risk assessment or risk, some people are keen on risk assessment and others are risk averse. What would your advice be to those who say that risk assessment it's a nuisance? You know, we leave it as something small, as a small consideration when we plan an event.
Look, I think the reality is that the legislation, SASRIA particularly, the South African Sports and Recreational Events Act, applies to all events that take place in South Africa. And the legislation specifies that before you host an event, you have to apply to SAPS for a risk categorization. And along with that application, you have to provide a risk assessment that details the risks that are likely to take place. And once you've done so and gained your risk categorization certificate, you need to sit down and work with the local JOC, the city authorities, to develop an event safety plan that will mitigate against those risks. Now, you know, one of the questions that you might want to ask is, how do you do that? Well, you actually do it by appointing a competent person to take on the role of the event safety officer. There are many instances in the past where the event organizer would simply say, oh, you know, let's give this task to my nephew. You know, he doesn't have anything else to do, and you know, this is an easy job. But it's not. Event safety is a complex task that involves multiple facets of an event, and if it's not done properly, people will get hurt. So then the question is, well, you know, how do you ensure when you're appointing somebody that they are competent, that they know what they're talking about? One of the things that we've been doing, sorry, so one of the things that we've been doing with SACIA is that we have developed, along with SACWA, a professional designation for event safety officers. So now you have the ability, when you're appointing a person to take on the role of the event safety officer, to say, you know, tell us about the qualifications or the professional designations that you have.
Yeah.
The consequence, if you don't employ a competent person and something goes wrong at your event, you're the person as the event organizer that's responsible. You can't pass that liability on to somebody else. It's you that is on the line. So when things go wrong, if you haven't appointed a competent person, you're the one that's going to bear the consequences.
Great. So leading on to that, Kevin, you have the Event Safety Summit coming up in June this year, is it? And
July 27th, 28th.
Okay, thanks for that correction. What practical outcomes do organizers, safety officers, and government stakeholders that hopefully will attend, what is it that they could expect as a kind of a learning and exchange or a platform at this year's edition of the summit?
So we've got some great speakers that are participating in the event. Gayton McKenzie is our keynote speaker. He's going to be talking about some of the mega events that he's got in his sights to attract South Africa. The Department of Sport, Arts and Culture are also the custodians of the SASRIA Act. So one of the sessions that we have is a workshop where we're going to be looking at SASRIA. And as an outcome of the workshop, we're going to be making specific recommendations to the department on what needs to be done to upgrade the SASRIA Act. Of course, it was first published in 2010. There was a SASRIA Amendment Act that was published in 2017. But in essence, you know, SASRIA was published 15, 16 years ago. And in an industry that develops as fast as the events industry, it's certainly something that needs to be updated. I think the other thing is that we've got great speakers from local government. And one of the things that we really do need to do is to create greater collaboration between local government, who are responsible for enforcement of bylaws and the enforcement of safety standards, and event organizers. And one of the sad things, I think, is that right now we're in a situation where the relationship with or the relationship between event organizers and local government is largely confrontational. You know, they want to enforce rules. We want to get our event on the ground and running. Everybody wants to create a safe environment, but conflict.
Yes.
And
yes.
actually, one of the key elements that needs to come out of this is to create an environment in which there is greater collaboration, cooperation, where local government and event organizers are working together to create a safe working environment, a safe event spaces, rather than that conflict that seems to exist at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And in closing, you had this pledge that you committed the industry to, that you made with the Gauteng provincial government. Could you just, in short, share more details about that and how that could play out as a learning curve at the summit?
Well, so the document that you're talking about is called the Gauteng Integrity Pledge. So it was developed by the Gauteng Ethics Advisory Council. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about during our summit is the importance of ethics in the events and entertainment industry. And in particular, one of the challenges that the Gauteng provincial government has been looking at is to say, within their procurement processes, how do they ensure that when they award a contract, they award it to somebody that is competent, that is ethical, and that can do the job that, they want to know that when they buy a tin of baked beans, they're going to open it, it's going to have baked beans in it. How do they make sure they appoint the right people? And essentially what we have done with the Gauteng provincial government is signed this integrity pledge in which we will work together to promote ethical business practices in the events and entertainment industry, and where we will hold members that are found not to have behaved in a responsible and ethical fashion accountable for those for their behavior. We can't allow people to get away with doing slipshod jobs. They need to embrace that commitment to safe working practices, but they also need to do so in a responsible and ethical fashion. And that's what the Integrity Pledge is all about.
Okay, great stuff. And Kevin, I think we all would like to wish you a very productive, successful, and summit that would lead to many implementation of the outcomes. As we say in the past, outcomes-based education is more important than just learning. There needs to be some action taken after the event. Kevin, I need to get it right, Kevin. It is the South African Communications Industry Association, SASIA, is it in short, and not SAICA? That is the accountants. Kevin,
yes.
Thanks for coming along. And we'll hopefully would like to have you maybe just shortly before the summit to make a return and perhaps just talk about the agenda in detail. Thanks for coming along. Until next time.
That's fine. Thank you. I appreciate it. Cheerio.
Thank you, Kevin.